Hi guys, what's going on? I hope everyone's doing well this morning. I've got a bit of a different one today. Obviously it's another drive with me. Hopefully I can start doing some out of car videos in the near future. I have started to try and do some TikToks, so I will leave my link in my bio in the description down below. If you want to have a look, check it out. It's mainly going to be compilations of, like, I don't know, players I loved, or me just, you know, picking players, making predictions, stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, like I said, we've got a bit of a different video today, a different video idea, because I didn't just want to be a channel that does reviews for the weekend, reviews for the Champions League, previews, predictions, and that's it, you know. I didn't want to be just reacting to everything, and you know. So today, while I was making I made a Robin van Persie compilation basically last night, and I was debating between doing Van Persie and Alexis Sanchez, which you probably think is mental as an Arsenal fan, picking between them two players. Obviously they both went to Manchester United, but I don't hate those players because of what they do in an Arsenal shirt, if that makes sense, you know. When I say it's players that I love, I loved what they did when they were in an Arsenal shirt, you know. It's like how some Arsenal fans don't love Fabregas nowadays because he went to Chelsea, but I can't separate myself from what he did with Arsenal, you know. So yeah, I wanted to do a video on my underrated 11 of the Premier League era. Now, when I was picking this, the way I've done it is they're not in the conversation when it comes to the best in their position in the Premier League era, basically, you know. So I put Van Persie in it because I feel like he does get slept on quite a bit, you know. Only a handful of Premier League strikers have got 30 league goals in the campaign, you know. So that's how I'm looking at it. So there's going to be some names where you're like, what? And then there's some that I have switched around for. It'll be quite obvious when you hear the name that it's not someone that should be in the best in their position conversation, but let's run with it basically, yeah? So, keepers I struggled for in terms of finding someone who would be in that conversation, you know? I think I ended up going with Ben Foster, and the only reason I went with Ben Foster was because I actually really liked him as a player when he was playing. I always thought he should be at a better team, and back in those days I didn't realise he had been at Manchester United, obviously, so he was never going to get that chance at another big club basically. So, but yeah, I really rated him when he was at Watford and West Brom. I thought West Brom especially, you know, I thought that was his like peak. Obviously he was great at Watford, but West Brom under Tony Pulis, I thought, this is a serious keeper. And he was just, you know what it was? He was just a classic shot stopper. He just kept the ball out of net. That's all it was, you know. It was traditional. And it was in a time where keepers were starting to play out the back a bit more. He was just, Tony Pulis had none of that. He was just kept his keeper as a keeper, and I think that's why I liked him so much. He's just a pure shot stopper. That was all it was. Next, right back. Now, I had this player as the original position as a left winger, but I had to move the team around a bit, so he's currently a right back, which is actually young, but I've got him in there in my mind as a winger basically. So I think it's a good thing and a bad thing how his career's gone, because all of our generation hopefully will remember this flashy winger, sprint up and down the wing, cutting inside, whipping it in with a ridiculous whip on him on his right foot. But the next generation, they're going to remember him as an old dodder who played left back or right back for Everton, you know. So it's quite interesting how his career's gone. And I remember when he went to United in 2012, and I think it was his first season there, where Arsenal got whooped 8-2. Like one of my worst football memories of my life by a mile. he was unbelievable on that day. I remember that day. Yeah, scarred from that day, more like. But he was unreal. Like, people forget he was at Aston Villa when they were tearing up. You know, they had Gareth Barry, James Milner, John Carew. See, Ashley Young was on the left wing. Stilian Petrov. They had a serious team back then when they were pushing for like that. I think they came 5th one year actually. And Stuart Downing as well, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, was there at some point. Maybe I'm talking nonsense now. But I remember him being there. But yeah, Ashley Young, definitely an underrated player who is suffering from being so consistent at the top level, basically, and finding himself in a new position that people are going to forget he was actually a quality left winger. Next, I actually got a Tottenham player in next, which I've got 2 Tottenham players in this team, and they're both in for similar reasons. So, first I got Toby Alderweireld. Now, he was never going to be a Premier League great without a Premier League. And that's obvious to say. And he only performed at the very top level for maybe 4 seasons, I think that's fair to say. 2015 to 2019. But in that time period, it was a very weird time for me being an Arsenal fan, because I obviously didn't want Spurs to do well, but I quite liked their team and their manager, and I remember thinking if I could pluck some players out of this team, I would love it, because we were close to winning stuff back then, but we just didn't have enough to get over the line. And I looked at their team and I was like, oh, if I could steal like Toby Alderweireld at the back, because obviously we had Per Mertesacker and Koscielny, so Koscielny was just not doing it by himself, but you know, with Mertesacker's legs, he was getting exposed in games. So I would have loved to just poached him. And I rate his passing out the back was something that's serially forgotten nowadays. He had a great diagonal right ping all over the top. Just he do it like on a sixpence every time. And when we talk about defenders having peaks, he just doesn't get mentioned at all, you know. I'm not that upset because he's a Tottenham player, but I do think he gets a bit forgotten about, and everyone mentions Jan Vertonghen, and I think he was better than Jan Vertonghen when they were at their peak. You know, I think Jan Vertonghen had more longevity than him, but if you're going for how good they were at their peak level, I think Alderweireld he was top. I think before he must have been either the best or the second best defender in the league at one time for a season or two, because he was just a top defender in a modern era where they were playing at the back more. Next to him, I have got, who did I set one in the end? Ricardo Carvalho. Now, I didn't realise he played for Chelsea for 6 years. In my mind, I just remember with Mourinho, and I remember with Mourinho again at Madrid. That's all I can remember. I can't remember what happened in between. Obviously, he went to Madrid in 2010. I don't know why it slipped my mind that he was there for 6 years, but because whenever he gets mentioned in this conversation for best centre halves ever, he gets thrown at him that says longevity in there. And I think if you're in there for 6 years, and you're surely that could be deemed long enough for you to be in the Premier League all-time 11. He's got 3 Premier League titles in that time as well, you know, so he won 1 title every 2 years within a 6-year period. It's very impressive, and that was with about 3 or 4 different managers at the same time. So yeah, I think he gets slept on a lot when it comes to the best centre halves ever. Maybe he doesn't quite be, I don't know, like a John Terry. I don't know, because I think he was, maybe it's because of the whole, he's not built like a defender, you know. He was quite scrawny, he wasn't the quickest, but he read the game so well. I think he might be arguably the most intelligent defender we've had in the Premier League in terms of reading the game. I think Van Dijk is great at doing it nowadays, but I think Carvalho was levels, like top level, and when it came to reading of the game. Yeah, so I think he should definitely be in the conversation more often. I nearly went for Sol Campbell here because he also gets left out of a lot of Premier League all-time 11s. And I'm not sure why Sol Campbell does get left out of them, because he did play for England. He got a lot of caps for England, and I think people automatically assume the best two centre-backs for England were Rio Ferdinand and John Terry. But Sol Campbell is in that debate. You know, he's not necessarily going to win the debate, but he's definitely in there. 100% he's definitely in there. Maybe it's because he wasn't as good on the ball. You know, he wasn't a modern. He wouldn't be a modern day centre half in terms of playing out the back, maybe. But yeah, I was close to going for him, but I'll go with Carvalho for now. Then left back, I seen a lot about Dennis Irwin when I was looking around this sort of subject and like finding top left backs. I was too young for Dennis Irwin, I'm not going to lie. I know he stopped playing in about 2002, but I was 4 years old, so I have not seen anything of Dennis Irwin really. I know he's meant to be a top left back who could play right back as well, but I don't want to put players into these sort of teams who I haven't actually watched a lot of, you know. I don't think I can do them justice if I do that. So my left back I went for was actually Leighton Baines. I struggled at left back, I'm not going to lie to you. I just don't think there are that many left backs that have been underrated. I think all the ones that have done well were rated quite highly and were rated well. Like, so I just chucked Baines in there because he never got that big move basically. Obviously he was always rumoured to go to Manchester United. He never got the big move, which means he never got the trophies he should have gotten in his career. He was playing at a time where Ashley Cole was still around, so he was never going to get a proper look with England. So I think the quality of player, he would be perfect nowadays, you know. I think his technical ability on the ball, he had a Trent level of crossing ability and free kicks. Maybe not, people will say it's not quite that level, but maybe it could be. He had an exceptional left boot, and he could whip it like no one else at that time, basically, from that left hand side. But yeah, I struggle with that position, so I've just gone with him because he never got the big move that he arguably should have gotten, you know. And then we move over to midfield now. So on the right hand side of the midfield, I've gone with a 10 who ended up playing on the right hand side a lot for his second club. I've gone for Juan Mata. Now people, again, it's quite similar to Ashley Young, where he played so long in the Premier League that this new generation would have only seen him play for Man United. And he was okay there, you know, he did alright, he got the bicycle kick against, or the scissor kick against Liverpool, but he was never the same player at United. At Chelsea, when he first came there, and he got Player of the Year, and he was unbelievable that season. I still remember his free kick, I think it was against Man United, maybe. But he was just unplayable that season in the number 10. He was your classic little number 10. And you've got to think of that Chelsea team at the time. You had Juan Mata, Eden Hazard, Oscar was still there, Ramirez was still there. I think Lampard was still there, potentially a bit older at that point. He would have still been there, yeah. And he was still the Player of the Year. Like, he was so good. And to even get them out of the hatches for Spain at the time when their midfield was outrageous, shows the quality of the player. But he just gets slept on a bit because I think because of how when he went to United, he just didn't. He did alright. He was consistent. He was a nice squad player for them, but that's unbelievable to think of at the time. You know, him being a squad player. Next, I'll be looking at central midfield. Now, this one was tricky because after the basic ones are like Michael Carrick, and then went Nico Cranchar. I actually got Moussa Dembele, which could be seen as quite a basic one, but he's the other Tottenham player who I looked at and just went, I would love you if you weren't at Spurs. I used to watch him play and I'd be like, at the time, I would love him. And people weren't giving his flowers at that point, you know. People gave him his flowers after he left the Prem, or after he retired. But he was so good technically. Like, he just wouldn't lose the ball. He just didn't lose it at all, ever, basically. Whether that was just from him holding off players, dribbling through players. Like, he would be a perfect six in this current era right now. He was just an unreal player for me, and the only reason he doesn't get put in these all-time Premier League 11s again is because of the trophies he didn't win because he was at Spurs. I think if he'd have won those trophies, I think he'd be in a lot more conversations. Like, Yaya gets put in these conversations. It's a big statement now, but if I was picking between Dembele and Yaya, I'm actually going for Moussa Dembele. Like, if I'm running a club and you can give me either Yaya, who might get me 20 goals in a season and will do well for 4 years maybe, and then his legs will just go, or you can offer me Moussa Dembele, who's going to give me an 8 out of 10 every week, not even a 6 or 7, an 8 out of 10 every week. That's without scoring a goal or getting an assist, basically. I'm taking Moussa Dembele. Like, that's how highly I rated him. And Tottenham squandered his talents, really. He should have won more in his career. And in terms of technical ability and physicality, I think he's right up on the top tier of Premier League talent. Next to him, I've gone for... I originally had Gareth Barry in there because I think he gets left out of a lot of teams just because of how long he played. I think it kind of works against him away because people just remember him being just a 6 and a sitter, and that was it. But he was actually a very good player as well at the same time. You know, you've got a lot of caps for England in a time where we had unbelievable centre mids. But I actually went for Oscar. Or Oscar or Ramirez, you can take your pick here, really. Another Chelsea player, but again, he's someone they both get forgotten about. And I don't know why Ramirez gets forgotten about so much, but they both get forgotten about here. I was swaying more to Oscar, just because of the technical ability that he had. He could have been like an all-time number 10, because he left when he was what, 21, 22 maybe, for big money. I think it was about 60 mil to China. And fair play to him, you know, he's come out and said, look, I had to say yes to it because of the money. Like, it sorted him and his family out for generations. But yeah, it's just talent that could have done so much more of his career. Next, left mid. I just put this player in because I absolutely loved him when I was younger. Morten Gamst Pedersen, proper Barclays-man. I kind of want to do my own little video on Pedersen because I just absolutely loved him when I was younger. I seen him play, I think once when I was younger, maybe for an Arsenal game, and I think it was the game where Arsenal beat Blackburn 7-1, and the only goal of the game from Blackburn was him whipping in a free kick from about 20-25 yards out, and it was the best goal of the game out of a game which had 8 goals in it. Yeah, he could have played for a bigger team, you know. I've seen a Manchester United fan saying that they would have loved to have him at their club, even though they're gigs, they would have just loved to have him. And you know what, I could see him playing like in Man United. He has that sort of look to him. Maybe it's the hair, maybe it's like the David Beckham sort of hair, but he definitely could have fit in that Fergie team, you know, whipping the ball in from that left hand side. So yeah, I just wanted to put him in there because I absolutely loved him, and I thought if he could definitely have played, he definitely could have played to a higher level as well. A lot of that Blackburn team could have, you know, you had 2 guy in there as well. But yeah, we'll go Morten Gamst Pedersen. And then strikers, obviously one's quite obvious, so I've gone for Robin van Persie, because again, when it comes to the strikers getting the conversations for the best in the Premier League, he never really gets a mention. And as I said earlier in the video, there's only a handful of strikers that have scored 30 Premier League goals in the season, and he is one of them. And he was doing it for an Arsenal side who were struggling, you know. We weren't great when he was with us. We had like Andre Santos playing for left back for us, and this was before Mesut Ozil came along and before Alexis Sanchez, and you know, he was basically doing it by himself. You had him, Alex Song, a Jack Wilshere who couldn't stay fit. Like, you had Nasri at some a bit earlier on, but when he hit his pump in 2012, I remember watching him play. I had I split a season ticket with my friend's family at that point, and he was unbelievable that season. Like, everything he was hitting was just going in, and yeah, everything he was hitting was just going in. And he could absolutely leather a ball. Like, I don't know if you haven't watched my compilation, just go watch it. It's literally like a minute long. But you look at like the Charlton goal he scored. Like, everyone has to know that goal. The volley when he's flying through the air, and then you've got like the Barcelona goal gets slept on so much when he rattles it in at the near post. Obviously, I know Valdez is a bit of a vault for it, but to still have the accuracy to lever that ball in a gap about that wide at the near post, that takes some serious ability, you know. So yeah, Van Persie was he was such a clinical striker for me. And he wasn't the quickest. He wasn't even a fox in the box, but his touch was outrageous. Like, you had Rude, who was a fox in the box, but Van Persie had everything, you know. He had a pass on him, he had a cross on him, and he could do everything in the game basically. And his left foot, again, just watch the compilation. Like the Tottenham goal he scored, I remember I was right behind that goal. I was in the stadium for that one when we came back from 2-0 down to win 5-2, and the bend he put on that ball to send it into the corner but past Brad Friedel was mental. Like, you can literally see the curl on it. He somehow manages to curl it from the centre of the goal, like the centre of the pitch, to the corner while it's going outside and comes back in. Like, it's one of the best goals I've seen in person, I think. Yeah, and then next to him, I've gone for, obviously the other player I mentioned at the start of the video, Alexis Sanchez. Now, again, a bit of a rogue one. People can be like, what, Alexis Sanchez? Like, after we did with Man United. And yeah, after we did with Man United, I think that's the reason why he's underrated now. People forget how good Alexis Sanchez was with Arsenal. I'm pretty sure he got more in his peak year. I think he got about 40 goal contributions, nearly high 30s, 40. And the most Hazard got around that time when he was in his peak was 30. I think it was about 30. I can't give you exact figures. I wish I could, but Alexis was pulling an Arsenal team forwards with nothing really behind him. You know, Ozil was doing his thing for a while, but he was doing it even when Ozil wasn't performing for us. You know, he was so good. And I remember when he did leave, I was literally heartbroken as an Arsenal fan. I couldn't believe he was gone. But even when that season when everyone was like, oh no, he was already falling off at Arsenal before we mentioned that, he wasn't. He just wasn't. Wenger wasn't playing in that much because he knew he was going to go. I remember there was a Europa League game we had where I can't tell you who we were playing against, some unknown team, but we should have been beating them. And then he brought Alexis Sanchez on the pitch, and he just pulled out like a little shoulder drop and whipped it in the bottom corner against them. And he just had that moment of magic, which we never had with a player since then, really. I know we got Saka now, but he had that South American magic to him, you know. And I think he gets seriously underrated because of how bad he was at Man United, and I know he was bad at United, but at Arsenal, in his peak, I think he was the best player in the league one year and he didn't win the award, which I think was criminal. But he was definitely the best player in the league for a season or two at some point. But yeah, that's my 11. If you disagree with it, if you have any players that you think should have been in there, then let me know down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed the football this weekend. Bye.